the minutes anyways. You'll find out. If you were listening, you would have heard. Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. The Planning Commission for El Dorado, February 27th, 2020. Mr. Shivers, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Fellers, Commissioner Heckler, Commissioner Leeson.
Here.
Commissioner Long.
Here.
Commissioner McLaren.
Here.
Commissioner Stewart.
Here.
Chairman Tetrick.
Here.
Commissioner Watson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, the next item, approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Any questions, comments, changes, clarifications? The meeting adjourned at 6:26.
Wow, this doesn't sound right, does it?
No, it was fast, but don't own a time machine.
Did we go -4 minutes?
Yes. So other than that, if there are no other changes, I would entertain a motion.
I'll check back on the video and get that corrected.
Thank you.
With the amended time, I move to approve the minutes from the January 16th meeting.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, new business. Item number 1, Mr. Shivers.
All right, we received an application for a special use permit at 3515 West Towanda Avenue. This is the College Acres edition, platted back in 1967 and built out a little bit after that. This is a rural residential area, primarily 2-acre lots, a lot bigger than what we see in our downtown areas. And in 2008, the city annexed this area, so it was originally in the county, and now it is within city limits. My map is a bit zoomed in there, but the property is in the yellow box, and then everything surrounding the subdivision is agricultural and pasture uses. The applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Schwint, are proposing an accessory structure, 1,800 square feet in size. Accessory structure is anything secondary to your home, anything like a shed or a workshop or office, garage, anything of that nature. The measurements are about 36 by 50 feet. He is planning for a 10-foot sidewall and a 16-foot peak height on his structure. And he's looking to do a mix of things in there, as most residents do, a mix of storage, workshop, office space, all those things that we see pretty common in them. So up on this screen here is a site plan that the applicant has provided to us. I added some color to it just to make it a little bit more visible on the screens. The blue is his house, just to the right of there, or the north is Towanda Avenue. The purple is a small shed he currently has. The yellow is a utility easement, cuts right through the center of College Acres lots. And then just to the south or to the left is the proposed location for his 36 by 50 accessory structure. Now, on the site plan that I included in your packet, he originally had a 13-foot side setback there to the west. It's actually 1 foot short. Our minimum is 10% on the sides, and his lot width is 140 feet. So I spoke with the applicant and updated that, so it'll be actually 14 feet, 12-inch difference there from what was in your packet. So this is a rural residential area. We have large lots, lots of open space, very, very low density. It's very different from a lot of our cases that we see in our urban neighborhoods, the urban residential. If you remember about a year ago this time, we were working on updating our accessory structure regulations. One of our big goals there was just to find a way to both streamline the process, give some additional options to applicants, and maybe more importantly, help these large structures fit into our urban areas, since sometimes they can be pretty big. However, this is a wholly different situation, being out here on more of a rural area surrounded by agricultural land, large lots. Just a very different situation from when we did those rules. So we do believe it's compatible, it's consistent with other structures in the area. On this particular map, I've identified a few other large structures out there. All these were built prior to 2008, when this was under the jurisdiction of Butler County. So, you usually see these in rural residential areas. For example, I referenced this in my memo there to the west. You'll see, I'll get over here, this yellow circle, we have a 1,700 and a 2,400 square foot structure. Over here to the east, on these two circles, we have a 3,000 and a 2,400 square foot structure. So as you can see, the proposed 1,800 square foot one will definitely not be the largest and is pretty consistent with what's out there today. So with all that being said, we do support your recommendation to approve this special use permit, and I'd like to invite the applicant, Mr. Schwint, up for a moment.
I know he introduced you. Could you please state your name and address anyway for the record?
Okay, I'm Darren Schwent, live at 3515 West Towanda in El Dorado.
Thank you.
I am the applicant, and Jay has pretty well covered it. One of the things that we would like to use this for is we're getting, family members are getting off married, and eventually we're probably gonna be having some grandkids. We do not have a basement in our house. A lot of the houses do around us, and we do not. And so this might be one thing that we could do is kind of, as our family grows, we could use this to have kind of family reunions, that kind of stuff out there. Also just be for storage and this and that. So other than that, Jay's pretty much well covered anything, but I could answer any questions if you have any.
How much slope from the house to the north edge of that pond? Looks like your property line extends just into the pond area. What kind of fall do you have?
Oh, it's about maybe a 1/4 inch per foot, something like that, from the house to the
Okay,
pond.
pretty gradual, and it's not like it's coming up on a hill or...
As you get closer to the pond, it starts to get a little bit more slope, so it's pretty flat up till, probably to where that shed, maybe even a little bit further into the pond area, south. Might be pretty flat, but it's still got some slope there.
Yeah. At the very least, I'm sure it's at least 2 or 3 feet lower than the house there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have, thank you.
Have you decided on a color scheme? Is it going to try to tie in with your house, your structure? Is it going to be what?
Well, that's Jay kind of encouraged us to try and get it to somewhat match the house, and I sure didn't want pink or red. Our house is kind of it's a little more green than the walls here, so we would probably do something that tried to match, but we would have a tin sides and roof, and you don't get a lot of choices with tin, so we'll try and get it as close to our house as possible, but
Okay.
be a little bit limited.
Do you have any other question?
If the pond ever gets full, how close to the water will get to you?
We've lived there 14 years, and we've had some big rains, just last year and a few years ago. And it's not even close to where this building would be. I mean, not even close.
There is a pond behind your property?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing, but yeah, there's a pond there. And there's kind of a little nook right above the A in location. There's kind of a little nook where the water comes around. When it gets really high, that water will come back around. And that's as high as I've ever seen it.
So the properties are supposed to drain to the pond, all along that Towanda Street?
Yeah.
They're all sloped to the pond?
Any other questions? Thank you.
I have one question that I thought of when we applied for this. We've had a few changes. We thought we would get started on construction right away, and now it looks like it might be another year or so. Is that going to affect, once we apply and gets approved, is there a time frame on that?
It's usually 12 months. I think we could add to the motion, depending on how you guys are feeling, a time extension to 24 months to get started on the project, or
That to start or to complete?
start. It has to be completed or started. That's how our language is. So it doesn't have to be completed to 12 months right now. It just has to be working on it or in progress. So you can extend that to 24 months, maybe, depending on what you're thinking.
Essentially full permit.
If he sells the property, does that nullify it, or will it continue on?
Special use permits, they do not carry over on residential properties, but I've yet to actually see an instance where that's happened. This would probably be one of those where in this hypothetical, if we approved it and in 6 months he decided to move elsewhere, and nothing was started on the building, I think that'd be an instance of it not carrying over. However, if it was built, then obviously it would be there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will open the public hearing. Would anybody like to speak on this matter? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'm David Crook, I'm the pastor at First Southern Baptist Church, and I'm here representing Kansas Nebraska Convention Southern Baptist, who now has the property at Prospect, with the church closed, which is close by, and they've asked us as a church to consider taking on that church as a satellite ministry location.
I think we're talking about two different ones, right?
Oh,
Yeah, we haven't
There will
finished
be
the.
another opening.
Perfect. Sorry, I should have clarified that, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
And
That's my fault.
so to clarify,
I thought you would have gone first.
Yeah,
so to clarify, there'll be 3 hearing
public hearings.
opportunities.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's my fault. I should have said that.
I should have clarified too.
Okay. Would anybody like to speak on the Tawanda Avenue special use permit? Okay, we will close the public hearing for that item. I will clarify. I guess we've never had to worry about that before. We've only really had one.
Not too often.
Okay. Okay, is there any discussion amongst the commission? Questions? Thoughts?
No, I
On the
don't,
time span, that wouldn't really be up to us, would it? So it wouldn't be something we'd be.
Well, I think for the special use permit, it would be, right?
Right.
Because I mean, if, to approve that, we could say that has to be done within 24 months, and then the construction would be part of the permit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's okay if we add something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna hurt
And in
anything.
most cases, a lot of people come in and then they're ready to start within a month or two, so I think that's appropriate.
because of all the adjacent structures out there, I don't see a problem with building another one. I mean, we have 3 others, large buildings, metal buildings.
This would actually be
Oversized, so-
smaller than most, so
Yeah.
it would definitely fit with what's out there.
Yes, I
And
agree.
there's some smaller ones I didn't highlight on here, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you.
I move to recommend approval of case number 20-01-SUP, a request by Darren, I don't want to say it.
Smith.
Smith?
Yeah.
For a special use permit to allow an 1,800 square foot accessory structure on the property located at 3515 West Tawanda Avenue for the reasons set forth in the staff recommendations and heard at the public hearing, with the exception of adding an extension for starting time.
Do you want to clarify a time range?
24 months.
Perfect.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I second it.
Roll call, please. Mr. Shivers?
Commissioner Leeson,
Yes.
Commissioner Long,
Yes,
Commissioner McLaren,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Chairman Tetrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
All right, motion to recommend approval with the time extension passes 6-0.
Thank you. Okay, the next item will be case number 20001. Mr. Shivers, would you present that, please?
Yep. And I will be following up with the city commission date then. And that'll be in about 2 to 3 weeks. Next up, we have received an application to rezone 1.6 acres at 2765 Southeast Highway 54. This property is concurrently going through a lot split process. It's actually a very large property with a number of different things going on it. Right now it is surrounded by low density residential, scattered commercial uses there along Highway 54. Our future land use map calls this area neighborhood mixed use, which is a lot like it sounds. It calls for residential, a mix of small scale commercial uses there along the edges. Today the property is zoned R1, which limits it to single family. So this property, until 2009, was under the jurisdiction of Butler County and their zoning I don't know how it all played out, but it is zoned and has been zoned for residential, including when we turned over to city zoning, where we took everything to our equivalent, which is R1 single family. So sometime in the last few decades, there's 2 commercial buildings along 54 that have been used for commercial for some time. So the applicant's looking to add an additional building. So to do so legally, they need to rezone it to commercial. So though it's zoned residential today, those 2 uses are grandfathered in. So that's the purpose of the application. The C1 zoning would allow a lot of the things you see here in town and along our main corridors: retail, office, vehicle repair, vehicle sales, equipment rentals, self-storage, pretty broad general commercial type stuff. It does not include the industrial things you'll see along 6th Street, a lot of warehousing, manufacturing, does not include that. This property is served by water, and I believe sewer as well. There's a unique water and sewer district serving this Prospect area. So after our analysis, we do believe it's compatible with the area. We do have this interesting mix of non-residential out there. This is what this current map actually shows. You know what, let me go back a little bit. So this is our zoning map for the area. It's not something we look at too often. The yellow is R1, that's our single family residential. The blue there to the east is mobile home park. It allows mobile homes as well as single family. The red is a lot of the Deer Grove RV park that we worked with last year about this time. That's C1, so it's currently commercial. See, north of the road, you've got the C1, which is the red up there at the corner of Blue Stem and 54. The green with the AR is agricultural residential. A lot of that area is pasture, with the exception to there to the west. The sale barn it falls under that agricultural zoning as well. And despite those zoning uses, I've highlighted on this slide all the non-residential uses going on. So though we talk about commercial, there's other things out there such as there's a pair of churches out there that we don't consider residential. Deer Grove RV Park, we don't consider that to be residential as far as being long-term living. It's short-term. So we're not expecting any major impact to this area given the presence of 54, the existing traffic, the existing noise that's generated by it. This lot, the way they're doing the lot split process, it has good orientation and access to 54. So on Tuesday of this week, due to this location in our extraterritorial jurisdiction, which is where we share zoning authority with the county, what that means is that we have the zoning authority, Butler County does all the inspections and permitting. So as part of our agreement, we have this land use authority and we're required to take these cases to Butler County Commission. So we did that on Tuesday morning. And they did recommend unanimously to recommend approval of this case at that meeting. So we have their blessing as well. So with that being said, we do recommend approval of this rezoning request. And Mr. Donjus, the applicant, is here, and I'd like to invite him up for a moment.
My name's Tim Donjus. My address is 2873 Southeast US Highway 54, El Dorado, Kansas. Currently, the property that we're looking at is zone residential, but the buildings that have been there, and it's been used commercially literally for decades. So what we're doing in the neighborhood isn't something new. We're just trying to do it properly and get the zoning changed so we can pull our permits, so we can conform with everything the county and the city requires for us to build another building there. If you have any questions on anything, just feel free to go ahead and ask.
These other structures in the picture, are those buildings? Is there a house in there? I drove by it today and I'm not sure what all I was looking at there.
There is, okay, the one you're seeing there with the white roof was an RV repair shop. It was Ramsey's RV Repair. That's who I bought the property from, was the Ramseys. To the west of that building, it has the white roof. That, from what I can tell, Mr. Ramsey's father built that, and I believe it might have been a muffler repair shop because we found like 100 mufflers in the attic of that building. And those have been in existence there for decades. His family actually used to farm that, used to hay that field right there. Mr. Ramsey himself lives just south of that along Caffrey Road. That's his residential house between the proposed property and the church to the south. He lives there. The property to the west of where Jay has the arrow currently, that is a pond in there. And then to the west of that is a rental house that we own. And also to the west of the current proposed zoning, that was a motel there, which we own. We make it apartments, not, we're not interested in really running a motel. So as we call it, Deer Grove Cabins. To the east is Deer Grove, which we own. And of course, you know, a lot of you were here last time when we got the rezoning changed from a mobile home park to the RV park area. So, and then we now own also the mobile home park to the south in that area also. So we have a pretty, you know, good stake, I guess, in the neighborhood for the most part.
Where was you gonna put another building at?
Currently, we want to put the buildings right between the two current buildings that are there now.
If I'm not mistaken, Jay, you might know this. Whenever we was talking about the RV park, wasn't there big problems with flooding and everything's supposed to be draining right into that where you're wanting to rezone?
That was a hot topic at that meeting.
So if you go in there and build and change all that, isn't that just gonna increase all that flooding problems back in there?
The place that was at question was really, I don't know if you see this or not, was over here.
Yeah, I thought it was on
Was
the,
where the problem was. It wasn't actually on the Ramsey's property.
Yeah, it was
It
on
was
the
over
other
here to
side.
the east.
Yeah.
Is where it came into question, actually west of the church.
yeah.
In this area where we own that property. The one neighbor there was concerned of water runoff onto his property, was the concern over here.
But you are correct, though. So drainage is something that comes up every time we do any type of development. So what we have is an application to rezone it. So if it's approved and he decides to build more, all of that will be in Butler County. So whatever site plan checklist that they work through, they will do that, do the inspections, do the permitting. So the question for us tonight is just, is it appropriate for this to be commercial? That's the broad question. Our agreement with Butler County just says we have our land use authority. That's it.
Did they, I know you said that they approved it, but did they have any concerns about anything? I mean, is that stuff that we can ask? I mean.
The Butler County Commission?
Yeah. I mean, did they?
It was, oh, you know what? I'm gonna pass this out. I have a brief letter, and it was very brief. I think on this topic and the last one, excuse me, this one, the next one, 3 or 4 minutes. They kind of heard the case, had a question or two, and just unanimously voted. And David Alfaro just sent me this letter over, so I will pass it out for you.
Does anybody have anything else for the
Yeah, I
applicant?
was gonna ask about the
Yep, go ahead.
driveway.
Let her go.
The driveway, you're gonna split the driveway
Yes, it's an
between the
easement.
two properties?
Yes, it's already surveyed out, for an easement.
Okay. What I was questioning, the outline almost goes to that house back there. Is that gonna affect that house back behind?
Which house are you referring to?
Right straight south of the driveway.
Of the driveway, that's a rental house that we own.
Oh, you own it?
Yeah, we own it.
Okay, so,
And that's part of that easement of that, well, actually, you asked about the easement, didn't you? That's part of that easement also.
is it?
It
okay.
comes right back through there. It's a easement that's been surveyed out by
Okay, so
Roger
if it
Cutzinger.
affects anything, it's gonna affect you, so.
Yep, yeah, we looked at all that when we were surveying it, to make sure that that wasn't gonna be an issue, because we realized that was still gonna remain as a residential zoning, and this is gonna be a commercial zoning, so we went ahead and took care of that when we surveyed.
Kinda looked like it messed up the driveway, is why I was asking.
Would you say mess it up?
Well, looked like the corner of the property you're rezoning kinda affected the driveway, covered the driveway.
Yeah, and that's why we had it surveyed out.
Okay.
Yeah, we had the survey done, so we didn't have any problems in the future with that.
You've got a declared access easement there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, because they're gonna use the same entrance they're using anyway, so.
Yeah, we are.
You wouldn't really affect that. I mean, you're still coming in the same way. So if you had a problem, you've already had it. Not like we'd be creating a new problem.
We have an easement that's
Sure.
in place for the survey.
And my map is approximate. This
Yeah,
isn't,
yeah.
this isn't the same as the surveys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And believe it or not, we also have an easement between the building and the pond area also. Because some people are concerned sometimes, some people don't like property lines to go across ponds and things like that, because it can cause issues between, different people, and we
Water
discussed,
rights, yeah.
we discussed the pond issue, and, we did some surveying and stuff to address it also for an easement.
Any other questions?
So you own from Caffer Road to west, how far?
I'll try to help out here. It's hard to see, there's a black line right here.
There's a
Is that
black
correct?
line,
And then it goes, if you can see this stream
Down to
here.
here.
There's a kind of a building on
Okay.
the far side over there.
Is this lot here, and then over here we own, pretty much, we own this here, back to that location.
There's a screen right.
All the street right there, yeah. So currently, let's see where I'm at here. We own this here,
okay,
which this, Mr. Ramsey, he sold us the property, knowing that we're gonna, because he understands some of these things out there. Anyway, sorry, I'm probably blocking his view. Also, we own this to the end of Caffer Road, over here, around this house, over the church, and then back, and then we recently purchased a mobile home park back here also. So we own, we have a fairly, large stake in the Prospect area, actually.
okay. Well, the reason I'm asking is I'm just wondering about there's no neighbors really to be addressed here.
We do have one
There is,
individual
okay.
here that's here to talk.
I'm trying to find, okay,
We do have a Prospect social Facebook page out there we use. It's a closed page, and some of the things we address through the page, sometimes we get questions. Some things come up, it's like, what are they doing now? And so we try to, handle some of that, and we also had some people contact some of the folks that are tenants of mine that lease the buildings also there currently, and thought that they were building a building, and anyway, so there has been some contact with us, with the community out there
Okay.
already. But Mr. David Cook is here to address his part, I believe, on the church that they're possibly looking at taking over out there. If you have any more questions for me?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will open the public hearing for this case number 20-001. Who would like to speak? Yeah, now it's your turn.
Now I'll do it.
Yeah,
Sorry
now
about
you
that
do it.
earlier. I'm
You're fine.
an idiot, so,
That's my
David
fault.
Crook, I live at 1815 Quail Run, and I informed you a little bit ago of my stake in this, and really, I don't have much, and I've had a conversation with him that there's no intention of this, but I just wanted to know about long-term restrictions for an establishment within a church, 1,000 feet of a church, that would be inappropriate, such as a bar or a strip joint or a place you buy alcohol. So just wanted to bring that to concern, and then I'll drop it and leave it with you, so thank you.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
My name is Michael Payton. I live at 1027 Southeast Connor Road. And if it would help, give you kind of an overview using the map of where we're located in relation to this. This is our house right here.
Okay.
So we're right, kind of just right next to all this. I have a few concerns, and I feel like, that you guys addressed some of the questions, some of my concerns, especially when it comes to what's the future of the property and how abundant of this or expansive are their property prospects to where they can come in and possibly start rezoning other pieces of property. As he kind of pointed out, the property lines are a little bit different than what's being highlighted in the white, where their property actually extends down further, and then according to Tim himself, they own a vast amount of property around that area. And I just have kind of a few things that I'd like to address on it. As a property owner there, we take really great pride in our property, and we've been fixing it up, and we're trying to add to the community and the character of our neighborhood. And I currently feel like, just because something's been being done for, however long it was, he has only had the property for about a year, if that's correct. Is that correct?
A year or two, yeah.
And then that ownership was, or the duties of the zoning was transferred from Butler County to El Dorado, roughly, what was it, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
9 years ago? And so within that time frame, you know, he bought the property as it was while El Dorado still knew that it was zoned as just residential R1. And one of the concerns that I have is I feel like this kind of sets a precedent for continuing to come in later and trying to rezone everything into commercial property, and therefore kind of strangling out the rest of the residential property that's here. Because the maps that you guys are seeing, if it was zoomed out, would show a lot more residential property than what this is showing right here. If you look back straight down Connor Road, which Connor Road is the road that I live on, it actually goes all the way back and expands out a lot further as far as the residential is concerned. And the way that everything is zoned right now, all the businesses that, you know, we've heard that there's several other businesses in here. One is possibly being currently operated. I'm not really sure. I know that there's new signs out there. And that was something that if this is in violation of the zoning as it is right now, is something that should be taken into consideration by the commission.
If I could interrupt just a moment, it's grandfathered in, correct? It's an existing non-conforming use?
So the concern here is that this very well may have started before Butler County even adopted zoning regulations. So I agree. I don't think we should be setting a precedent, and we probably wouldn't even be setting a precedent. If people start doing something that's not allowed, it's certainly a problem. And if we find out about it, or the county finds out about it, then we enforce it, for sure. So I agree, if someone comes in and starts doing commercial yesterday, the year before, 5 years before, that's a problem, and we shouldn't support it by rezoning it to help them. The problems that we get into is sometimes when we have something like this where, so on one side, it has been occurring for decades, and how do we address that? Well, today, we don't have to address it because it's grandfathered in, okay? So they can continue to use those two buildings. So the only reason we're here is because they want to build more. And so that's where the line is drawn, right? So that's why we're here, you know, and unfortunately, you know, we do have things that are grandfathered in, and we have that process specifically because in town, outside of town, it doesn't even matter the city, we get in these weird situations where things occurred well below, before zoning was enacted. You know, if I may, I make comments on some of your other things. I agree with you, there's a lot of residential to the south, it's a big area, especially if we zoom out. So generally our best practices with planning, and we discuss this a lot here, is that we like commercial to be multifamily commercial, these high density uses that have lots of traffic, make noise and do things. We want them on arterials, we want them on highways, and we don't want these in our neighborhoods. So you're right, there's a lot of residential to the south. And if Mr. Don just said next week that, hey, we want to do this whole tract going all the way down south to commercial, I wouldn't be sitting here saying that's a good idea.
Well, and,
you know,
but you're talking about a week from now. What about 2 years? What about 5 years?
It's still a bad
and the
idea.
diminution value of the residences that surround it. You know, I've put a lot of time and energy into my house in trying to improve it. And I would hate to see, you know, and I'm not saying that he is, and I'm not trying to say that that's your plan, but this is my concern, is if all this property is owned by him, and it seems like the vast majority of what he's wanting to use the properties that he owns for is commercial purposes, what's to prevent him from coming back in a couple of years and asking to rezone another portion of it, and then another portion, and have it continue on and on? You know, I think it's really easy to sit here and say, well, it's been that way for years, so let's just continue to let it happen and we'll just adjust the regulations to allow for it. When that can turn around and impact the families that have put time and effort and money and raised their children there, and what's to happen if we don't get our money back out of that, if we decide to sell our property? You know, that's one of my concerns that I have.
Sure, and you know, you had said something earlier that we would set an example or however it was worded, but we look at each case individually, and if you can go back and watch any of our videos and we discuss every topic, and everyone is looked at as a single piece. And I mean, the thing that I come back to is that those two buildings could already be used commercially. I mean, it's not like, even if we say no to this, those two buildings could still be commercial tomorrow because they were grandfathered in, right? I mean,
Well, I mean, that's what I'm understanding. I haven't had a chance to really sit down and look. I mean, I work full-time, 12-hour days. I coach on the weekends for a travel team, and so, my time is very limited. But my access to laws and also me being a graduate from law school, I would like some time to look into this a little bit more, because I feel like there might be some issues with this grandfather clause allowing this, especially since this happened 10 years ago, roughly 10 years ago, where it was transitioned over, and it was still zoned as residential. And then when people come in and buy the property, knowing that it's zoned as residential, I think that creates a problem, and that's what I'm talking about, this precedent. It's setting the precedent where if we just get a little sliver of it at first, get that zoned, and then what's stopping us from coming back in and rezoning the rest of it?
yeah, I'm not sure that we're concerned with the grandfather part, right? I mean, is that?
Well, that seems to be kind of the argument.
But I mean, that's not something that we determine, and I didn't go to law school, so, I mean, I don't know the answer to that,
Well, I don't either, right now. I just.
Grandfathering it's not a new concept, it's not a new precedent. I don't think there's anything controversial to be pursued there. Likewise, I'm always gonna advocate from a position, first of all, there's an advisory board here with a public hearing. You were notified, I'm sure, in the neighborhood of 30 days at least.
It was
And
more
this
like
hearings.
20. I know the regulation stipulates that we have to have at least 20, but.
Whatever, I'm sure you were notified within the confines of the regulations. And ultimately, this decision, our recommendation, goes up to the city commission. So that's an elected body, not an appointed body like we are, but that's an elected body that reviews this case to make sure that the best interest of the public and property owners is maintained. But I won't speak for the rest of this board, but I'm going to advocate for the rights of the private property owner in many cases to seek the highest and best use. I mean, that's their right in purchasing and developing that property within the regulations and within the processes that are set before all of us. So I don't think that just because it was an R1 that had grandfathered commercial uses on it, I don't find that compelling enough to say that it shouldn't be rezoned to commercial, particularly when it sets along a major arterial like the highway there. Clearly, this is a nice neighborhood pocket of residential development out there, and it clearly gets more concentrated as residential as you get south from 54. But I mean, any other thoughts or concerns about this being the start of some sort of domino effect? All of those cases are going to be examined case by case, and if they're not compelling to this advisory board or to the city commission, or even the county commission, they're not going to be approved. So. I mean,
Well, and I see what you're saying, and I kind of understand it from your perspective on it. But, this does have an overall effect on the residents that are there. I mean, we can sit here and speculate all we want about what could possibly happen, but we don't know, and you say that it's gonna be a case-by-case basis, which kind of makes it even more compelling that we kind of have to take the totality of the circumstances of all the property and the possibilities of where it's gonna go into consideration when we're making these these decisions.
Sure. And I don't think that necessarily outweighs the capital that this property owner has put forth and invested in order to seek the highest and best use for this property. So,
And well, and at the same time, he came into possession of that property in full knowledge that he could have taken a look at the deed and saw what it was zoned at and saw that there was commercial properties on it and, you know, made his decision that way.
and,
You know?
and can carefully consider that the regulations allow for rezoning, so he can seek the highest and best use.
Absolutely. No, and I'm not
With plenty of public
negating the
hearings
fact.
to address to it, so.
And I'm not negating the fact that he has that ability. I mean, that's why we have the planning and zoning commission, so they can petition and see about rezoning. My concern is for my private property and the possible diminution of the value of that property as well, even if this does wind up cascading into multiple properties being rezoned for commercial, or whether it's just this one. You know, I don't think we'll really ever truly know what the entire impact of it is, but I do have one question. Have you guys ever been over to the area? Have you driven down the residential streets? Have you looked at all the property that's around there?
Yes, I did last time, actually the last 2 times, and I did this time. I actually got out and walked around as well.
I've been on every one of those properties you're talking about.
Well, I didn't go on properties.
We didn't commit felony.
I did not trespass.
This is being recorded,
The roads. Yeah, oh yes. Yes, I was on the roads or the subject's property. I think I did step on his property when we went through the first one, but yes.
And I understand, I mean, you guys have a task that you have to take into consideration, and this is kind of out there, not really in the city. But I really appreciate you guys' time and listening.
May I say something?
Sure.
Looking at this property, the only property that's going to be changed at all is clear to the east along Caffer Road. That corner right there is actually the only thing that's going to get changed. And the guy living south of it, he's, as far as I know, he's not hollering because he sold the property. And so actually, it's already C1 virtually because of grandfather, except that corner. That's the only thing that's changing out of the whole thing.
So which one, so I understand the corner section, so
Along
is the
Caffer Road.
white, yes, is the white outline representation of what's being requested to be zoned C1?
Yes.
So it's not just that open corner lot, it would include those 2 other buildings?
The
that are in
existing
it.
buildings, right. So there's, yeah, you have the open space and the 2 buildings here, yeah.
Okay.
And that's now a single property, correct? A single designated legally described property.
I have the legal description and the survey. I was holding it to do it concurrently with this. So if it's approved, we have that for the ordinance, and then they will file for the property as well.
So who is the property being split with, if you don't mind me asking?
So it's the same owner. And so what we do is that for each parcel, we try to do zoning that basically locks into the property lines. So what we don't want is to have one parcel that has a block of this and a block of that, because then it gets shady and it's hard to enforce the different lines. And so what we advised them to do was to do the survey. You're gonna create your own lot. So the ownership will be the same for both lots, but there'll be the different zonings.
Okay. I guess that's really pretty much the crux of, you know, what I wanted to present to the commission, and I really hope that even though we don't have a lot of families here, I think that there was kind of this how can I explain it? I've talked to several of the neighbors around the area, and it was almost like, you know, this was kind of like, oh, this isn't really that big of a deal. And, you know, when you look into it a little bit more, I'm glad I came to the meeting and saw kind of the extent of the property that is owned by the same individual, and, you know, the possibilities of what could happen in the future. You know, I have some concerns over it, and I hope that you guys will consider that, especially, you know, me kind of being the only one here from our neighborhood. I know that there's other people that have concerns over it, but of course they're not here and I can't speak for them, but I can speak for myself and my family. So I appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter? Okay, we will close the public hearing for this item. Any more discussion amongst the commission?
I've got two things to add to that.
What are
After you're talking some more, I was thinking about what you said. So the grandfathering really is for things that mostly predate ordinances, the zoning ordinance. And so you had mentioned if someone starts doing something that in 5 or 10 years they might consider grandfathered. So we have people that try that, whether that's putting an illegal shed in or a barn or a particular use that's not allowed, and then they try to say, well, I've done it for 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. And in all those cases, we say no. So you did it, you knew it, and that's a code enforcement issue then. So our grandfather stuff is really limited to decades, a lot of times before our regulations. So anytime that something is occurring that you know isn't right, it's not something that predates it, it's something new. We work with Butler County to enforce all our rules as we can out there. Our city code enforcement can't go out there, but our Butler County does. And so that we try to drive around as well. Sometimes our best reporting people are the residents. So if there is something out there that's concerning or anything else, you're welcome to call us or Butler County. Sometimes it's neighbors that are the best that are helping us regulate this, so we don't have to get into the battle where they say, I've done it for 3 years and no one stopped me, so now it's golden. Well, that's not cool. It doesn't how it works. And then the second thing I wanted to add is, due to this location outside of city limits, state law requires us to send out notifications to 1,000 feet. Obviously, the intent of that is to cover swaths of rural land where it's large lots, very, very low density. Every time we do one in the Prospect area, it captures a lot of houses. So we did get a lot of phone calls for this one, quite a few, in fact. No one really shared an opinion. I just let them know what's going on, invited them to the meeting. I didn't hear objections. I didn't hear support. A lot of people just asked what it was, and that's all the phone call was. So they didn't usually tell me if they were coming or not, or to pass along any particular message.
Thank you.
I have a question. If we do the rezone to C1, can he put an RV park in there, or would that require special use?
C1 would allow the RV park. I'm going to double check that. The reason that last time we did the special use permit was because the extension over here was zoned mobile home park. And so what it came down to on our end when I met with Tim and Natalie is the better fit for this property to help them get their RV park to rezone it to commercial, which is in the middle of that block that's mostly residential, or is it better just to do the special use permit and allow this specific thing? And so what we don't want is to just start letting commercial creep into the residential blocks, because if they decide they're done with it and they move on, someone else might come in and do something commercial in the middle of the neighborhood. So that's why we did it on that one, the special use permit. Let me double check. All right, so that is considered a campground, and it says it's a special use permit in C1. So when they did this one, it predates my time here. I thought it was allowed under C1, but what we did was we just kept it the mobile home park over there. So if they wanted to do the RV park, it's a special use permit on this property. And honestly, there's probably not enough room for it.
That's a good question, though.
It's challenged by the size and the topography on that corner.
It slopes quite a bit.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, if there are none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of case number 20-01-REZ, an application by Don's Properties LLC to rezone 2765 Southeast Highway 54 from R1 Low Density Dwelling District to C1 General Business District for reasons stated in the staff recommendation and heard at this public hearing.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Shivers, roll call.
Who was the second? Yeah. Was it a tie?
Yeah. It was a tie.
All right. Commissioner Leeson,
Yes.
Commissioner Long,
Yes.
Commissioner McLaren,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Chairman Petrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
6-0, the recommendation is for approval, and that will go to City Commission here in a few weeks. The third Monday in March.
Well, I just hope it isn't an RV park all over the place. And it looks like all trash.
We don't have any,
We already own the trash and RV.
That's why I asked that question.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to case number 20-02, another special use permit. Mr. Shivers.
Okay, our last one is a special use permit application at 1360 Southwest Highway 77. The property is currently zoned agricultural residential, AR, and the request is for an accessory apartment. That's defined as an accessory use residential unit that is located detached from a principal single-family residential unit. That's a long way of saying it's a second home, a second single-family home. As you can see on the overhead, this property is primarily surrounded by agricultural land. There is a home there to the south and to the north along 77, as well as AJ's pump jack service there just to the northwest. So it's pretty low density. The proposed house is around 1,600 to 1,700 square feet. One of our goals for this area is that we do want to keep it low density. We don't have a lot of utility infrastructure out there. When we want density, we want it in city limits where we can efficiently provide these utilities from road to electric, water, sewer, all of those things. So as it stands today, the surrounding property is also zoned agricultural residential, which would be allowed to also build a house on it. So for a frame of reference there. The property is 4.6 acres and faces at least one challenge. Floodplain on most of it. I believe that is the Walnut River there just to the east as it curves around the east into the south side of town. And actually a lot of this is floodway, which is an even higher level of floodplain according to FEMA. So he has his current house right over here by this tree. And so this area I have here, there's a site plan that he drew up and it's in your packet. So this is the area, probably the best fit for an area as far as getting out of the floodplain without having to move the other buildings around. So this did go to Butler County Commission on the 25th, this Tuesday. They did review it as you saw in your letter and unanimously recommended approval of the case. Dave Alfaro didn't have any concerns about this one. I did ask the applicant to meet with him. Butler County will be issuing the final building permit if approved. So I asked them to meet with him to ensure that they can meet all those rules as far as the utility access and what they plan to do for sewage and all those other things. With that being said, we support the request, and the applicant is here today. I'd like to invite Mr. Pulliam up to the podium.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm named Arthur Pulliam. I live at 1360 Southwest US Highway 77. And do you have any questions?
Is this you're wanting to build a rental structure or a second house for yourself?
It's a mother-in-law house. My better word.
Understand that totally.
My mother-in-law and father-in-law are getting up in age, and mother-in-law's having problems, so we want to have them close where we can take care of them. And what we have in mind later on is when we get to that point where the kids can move into it, you know, and we're not planning on selling them. Just a convenience for us to use the property where we can take care of the parents.
Are you planning to use the first entrance, and is
Yeah.
that business still open to where it would affect that?
By the
or-
time we get the house done and ready to go, that business will be out of business.
Okay.
Alan's just about ready to quit, so.
Sure.
That's it. The timing is pretty good. So.
So that's that bike repair shop you're talking about, the business?
What's that?
The business is a bike repair shop?
It's a
Mower?
It's a
Mower?
small engine.
Yeah,
Small engine,
lawnmowers
okay.
and stuff.
And you own that building?
Yeah.
You own that,
Yes, we do.
okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah. And, like I said, it's got its own driveway. It's already got a different address over there and everything too, so. See, it's already got the water and sewer, which we'll disconnect from there and hook it up to the house on from that building there, because we won't need it after Alan leaves, so.
What would you, in consideration for the floodplain?
Yeah, I was, David Alfaro, yeah, we were talking about that, and he was thinking about it being farther down in where the floodplain is, and where we're gonna set it is the highest place on the land.
It will be above the floodplain?
Yeah. Yeah. And we are gonna set it up out of the ground to fill up to it.
Yeah.
You're gonna elevate it so it'll
Yes,
be.
yes.
And the Butler County will supervise, I mean, that's their site, they're in
That is
charge of that,
correct. And
correct?
last year, they hired a floodplain administrator as well, that's just her duty, so, yeah, all these things would be taken care of at that site plan process to ensure that it's out of the floodplain and meets the requirements.
Any other questions for him? Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, at this time, we will open the public hearing. Anybody else like to speak? Okay, we will close the public hearing. Any discussion amongst the commission? Questions?
I'll add one tidbit to this one. Since this is considered an accessory apartment by our ordinance, you'd be surprised for how few property owners I mailed notices to and how many called to ask if we were putting apartments there. So I notified them all that we would consider at our next ordinance update maybe tweaking that language to not have the word apartments, because I think it scared a lot of people.
But this is a single, like,
Correct.
okay,
It's
do
a
we need to
single
make a
family.
note of that in our?
The definition is a single family.
Okay.
As I read earlier, yeah,
Okay.
it defines that, and even the Butler County Commission asked the very same thing. Are you doing apartments here?
Okay.
And I had explained that it's just the ordinance term, and it's confused a lot, so maybe I'll add that to our list the next time we make some tweaks.
Well, the suggested motion says apartment, so that kind of threw us all off, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something we can tweak next time, find a better word or term.
I mean, my only concern would be the floodplain, but that's something that the Butler County folks would take care of.
Sure.
Because I'm not sure, how accurate the lines are. That would be my only concern, but that's not our concern, I don't think. So.
Right. And it's a big enough concern for the county that they've hired an individual
Sure.
floodplain
I mean,
administrator.
it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, if there are none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of case number 20-02-SHP, a request by Arthur Pulliam for a special use permit to allow an accessory apartment on the property located at 1360 Southwest Highway 77 for the reasons set forth in the staff recommendation and heard at this public hearing.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
My second.
Mr. Shivers, roll call, please.
Commissioner Leeson,
Yes.
Commissioner Long,
Yes,
Commissioner McLaren,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Chairman Tetrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
All right. Motion to recommend approval passes 6-0. So I will be in touch. This will go to our city commission the third Monday of March.
Okay, Mr. Shivers, old business.
No old business.
Any staff items? Yes.
Just the one on your agenda there. It's that time of year where the planning commission gets to appoint one excess sales tax committee member. I think it meets about 6 times. I know Gerald's done it. I know you did it last year, right?
Once.
Once?
That's
So-
all we met last year was once.
Just once?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's no formal process, it's just whoever is interested and everyone agrees to.
I nominate Coach Long,
I accept.
tax advisor.
I second that.
Sound good? All right. Coach Long it is. I like that. All right. And then I have 2 other minor things. Just a brief update on the Flint Creek project. After our last meeting, it did go to City Commission. The plan development and the plat, everything was approved. So now they're on to the next steps, which is a mix of working out the infrastructure plans, working on executing the contract to transfer land from the city to the actual developer, We did receive building permits for the 32 new homes. I couldn't tell you when all this is gonna start, but there's about 5 different processes going on at the same time, but the ball is rolling, so that's great. As of right now, we have no March meeting. That means we've got no applications. On the other hand, throughout the year, I keep notes whenever we have community feedback or there might be an issue or something that we should consider tweaking in our ordinance. And so I've got a few of those tweaks on my list, and we got a new one last week. So our topics are adding up. There's a slight chance that I could be directed to call for a meeting just to kind of do that yearly tweak that we've been doing, just to address some problems, brainstorm some things. So there's a chance of that. Just don't know yet. But otherwise, we have no applications for March. And that's all I have.
Awesome. Okay, if there's nothing else, do we have a motion for adjournment?
One moment, I've got a question, I think, if you
Yep,
don't mind.
no, go ahead.
Obviously, David Lewis is no longer with us. I think
On the board.
reappointments, just, what that do? I can't confirm or deny.
Well, you're correct. So he's no longer on the board.
So who else is on our, I guess it was on the agenda? Those are the positions that are filled, and are they all filled? Still looking to fill the spot.
That is the only open one, is David Lewis's spot. And so that's just recently, and I'd reached out to him to basically say, if, I understand you're busy, but if you think you'll make the meetings this year, then please, come to the meetings. If not, let us know. It sounds like you worked pretty long days at the penitentiary, and that's understandable. I know that Kyle's seat, there you are, is coming up here, I think at the end of April. I forgot what I emailed you. And I think Scott Hackler's seat as well will be coming open here in a couple months. Now, they didn't tell me this when they started doing it, but when they renew people, the new renewal time is at the end of the year. So they're going from end of April, 1st of May to the end of the year changeover.
Bonus term.
So some people are getting extra time.
Yeah.
So what usually happens is the next month, Tabitha, our city clerk, will email me and let me know everyone who's up for renewal. And then we'll send out those forms if you'd like to renew, and if not, then that's the point where we know and we can start advertising for new members. So David Lewis's spot is now officially open, just that happened recently, so.
And that's a in-town spot, right?
Correct, yeah. We'll have Kyle's, if he chooses not to continue, that's out of town. I think Scott Hackler was the other one.
He is.
Which is outside.
He
of
lives
town.
out, yeah, he lives out
Right,
there.
well, and I think they're up for renewal at the same time, which I thought we had them offset, but I'll check with our city clerk.
Well, I think we did, but since Danny left, that his seat came open.
That
And so
might
they,
have been it.
yeah,
Is there term limits?
Don't believe,
no.
I'll double check, I don't think there is.
I remember looking and it doesn't say that there is.
It's a what, 3-year term, but you can serve consecutive, you
Yeah.
can
Correct, yeah.
keep rolling over.
I've been on it about 9 years.
Yeah.
You're gonna get an award for the lifelong members.
I got 6, yeah.
Yeah, we try to have it where every year, 3 seats are new, so we don't have everyone at once. If we can, so.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.